Well, good morning and welcome again to Johnson Street. And I just want to say again, Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. And I want to wish a special Happy Father's Day to my dad, Richard Creed. My dad is one of those dads who grew up without a dad. His dad was abusive, and my grandma left and took my dad at a very young age. And my dad grew up with uncles and other men who tried to help serve in that role, but my dad's also one of those dads who broke the mold and started our family legacy down the path following God, and I'm very grateful for all of those things that my dad did and just being a wonderful dad to me and my brother and sister. And I wouldn't be where I am today without the influence of my dad and without him showing me love and teaching me about God's love. So thanks, Dad. Love you. My name is Jason Creed, and I'm the youth minister here at Johnson Street, and we're wishing Scott Allen, our preaching minister, a speedy recovery from his surgery. And I'm getting to bring the word to you today, and I just want to start off by telling you a little bit about what we've been studying in the youth group for the last month or so on Sunday mornings. It's been a series called Atypical, and it has taken a look at some of the families in Genesis and how a lot of them had struggles and, fell into sin, and they definitely were far from perfect. We talked about Adam and Eve. We talked a little bit about Abraham. We talked about Jacob and Esau, and this morning we wrapped it up talking about Joseph and his brothers and that interesting family dynamic that existed. But the point of the series was that no family is perfect. Typical families allow their imperfections and their sin and their struggles to divide, but atypical families allow God to work through them in spite of their flaws and to serve His purpose. And we looked at how God worked through those families in the Bible, and we know that nobody is perfect, and certainly I'm not a perfect father, and all the fathers out here today are definitely not perfect. No one is perfect, but God can use us in spite of our imperfections to work for His purposes. So happy Father's Day again to all the dads out there. I know this is a difficult day for some, and a day to celebrate for many, but I want to wish everybody a happy Father's Day. So, as Brady alluded to just a moment ago, we just got back from a week-long trip to a place called Camp Barnabas. This is a shot of the camper arrival moment. It's very exciting. All the people in the burgundy t-shirts are their summer staff who are there all week. We are the missionaries in the yellow t-shirts, and we're all just trying to get excited for the campers' arrival. So, as Brady said, Camp Barnabas is a very special Bible camp that serves people, both kids and adults, who have special needs. Our week, this past week, was for kids age 7 through 18 who have things like Down syndrome, physical and other mental disabilities, autism, things like that. So it's a very different type of camp experience, but for these campers, it's a moment where they can come to Bible camp and they don't have to feel different. They don't have to feel like the only person who is maybe sticking out or can't participate in the ways that everyone else can. It's a wonderful place. It is. People say that it's the happiest place on earth, and I've been to both Barnabas and Disney, and I can assure you, it is the happiest place on earth. The joy and excitement that you get to witness at Barnabas it's unmatched. It's not something that you can experience anywhere else. It's a challenging week, as you'll hear from some of our students today. It is definitely a challenging week, and if you could just imagine babysitting for someone just blind, they give you some paper with some info about like what your kids like, what they don't like, and then they just you come over, they leave, and then here you go, you get to figure it out, and it's for a week. And maybe they wake up at 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. to go for a walk. And maybe they have some struggles with obeying directions or following instructions, or even getting ready to do things that to be fun, but for whatever reason, they just choose to be non-compliant, and maybe for no reason at all even. But it's a really interesting experience, and the reason that our youth group takes this trip, this is our first year. We tried to go last year, but the whole camp was canceled for the summer because of COVID. But the reason that we try to go to this trip is because it is such a unique experience to help you live with someone else and their priorities in mind before your own for a week. There's no greater experience that I've had that has stretched me in my selflessness and learning how to do that than Camp Barnabas. But I'm excited for us to hear a few stories. So in just a moment, we're going to have some of our missionaries come up and sit up here on the stage, and we're going to share some questions, share some stories, some moments that stuck out to them and how they saw God working at camp. But these students are paired with a camper. We call them missionaries, our students, and they're paired with a camper to be one-on-one with that camper for the entire week, 23 hours a day. They get a 1 hour break during the after lunch nap time. It's called, the camp calls it flat on back time, FOB. And that's their one break. And we got to huddle up at one of the meeting spots with one of our sister churches from Midland, Golf Course Road. We got to go up with them, and we just kind of unpacked what had been going on with us, with the struggles that we were having, the wins that we had had. And it was just great to get to hear some of the experiences and even see some of the struggles that our students were having. And it was tough for me seeing the students who had especially challenging experiences because for their first time, I really wanted them to enjoy the experience and just leave wanting to come back. And I knew that it would get easier as the week went on and they got to know their camper a little bit more. But the first day is always the toughest. But I'd like to go ahead and call up. I've got 8 missionaries who are going to come and talk to us. And the first 4 are Emily Kennedy, Amy Jordan, Nevaeh Oviedo, and Brady Chance. So guys, why don't y'all come on up here and we'll share some stories together about your experience. Y'all just have a seat wherever. Brady missed the memo about what shirt to wear. You guys all bought this one, right? Yeah, the one that we got was yellow, like in that picture. But I'll hand this to you, and you don't have to go first, but you can pass it off if you want to somebody else. You're going to see some pictures scrolling through while we talk, just of some candid photos, some photos of us doing some of our activities. This is actually a picture of Maddie and Jace with the camper Charlie, and they're up in a big tree house, and this was the paintball station. We actually had 2 counselors per cabin. The summer staff is there, and they help us go to the activities, do the activities, and they get a little break during the day. And one of them took a break right before this activity, and the other counselor was like, Jason, do you want to Noah took a break, do you want to come and get shot at for the paintball thing? And I was like, oh.
He hid behind the shield the entire time.
We got a shield. I still got popped twice right here in the side and in the hip, but I didn't hold it very well. But
yeah, he wouldn't let me shoot him.
No, when it was Brady's turn, he told our other counselor, Ray, hey, you can just chill. I'm only going to shoot at Jason. So I just stood there with the shield like this and just popped my head up. It was fun. It was, for the children, as they say.
And I was the one shooting.
So, guys, I just want to hear a little bit about, tell us about, your camper's name, a little bit about them and what it was like interacting with them, as well as, just a way that you experienced God either through them or what you felt like God was working out inside of you. So go ahead, Brady, just tell us a little bit about your camper.
So this was my first year going to Camp Barnabas. I had a guy named Jack, and Jack was probably 6'3", 6'4", 190. He was massive. He was huge. He was 18 years old, but had the mental age of a 2-year-old. Whenever he got out of the car, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is massive. But that first day, Jack had severe autism, and especially the first day was very rough for me. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. It was very hard. There's Jack right there. The first day was very hard. We were sitting at breakfast that first morning. Jason's standing across from me, just eating his food, and just out of the blue, like I said, we're only like 3 hours in the first day, not even, and Jack just reaches across and just goes, bam, right on my chest. And Jason just kind of looks at me and then looks at Jack. I was like, I have no idea what just happened.
Surprise.
Yeah. Good morning. But his parents had written out about a 10-page packet, printed this out for me, of every single word. I think he had the vocabulary of only about 15 to 20 words. So he was pretty nonverbal, and most of the words were words that he would say whenever he was getting angry or whenever he wanted to watch something. Like he would say George over and over whenever he wanted to watch Curious George. So a bunch of the words that he said didn't have a ton of meaning. There were some easy ones like water or potty whenever he needed to go to the bathroom. But for the most part, he was pretty nonverbal. And he also did not like loud sounds or a lot of talking around him. And that first day, I was like, we have to go eat. And so I was like, let's just go to the dining hall. And the dining hall was very loud. And so Jack had a couple of meltdowns in the cafeteria, which resulted in me getting hit a couple of times. And I don't really blame him. He was just expressing how he felt. He got his hand around my neck one time and scratched my neck, scratched my arm. That first day was really rough. I think I cried more that first day than I have in like the last 5 years. No joke. And honestly, after the first day, I was like, I'm throwing in the towel. I'm so done. I was that close to just saying I'm done. But I knew, first of all, Jason would not let me do that. He would laugh at my face and be like, get back in the cabin.
Oh, you're so funny, Brady. Get back in the
and I was not going to let myself do that. I kind of reminded myself that God never gave up on these kids, so there's no reason that I should ever have a reason to give up on these kids. No matter how many times I'm hit, or no matter how many times I got hurt, there is no reason for me to give up. After the first day, it got a lot better. We decided, hey, the dining hall is not a good place for us to eat, so let's go eat in a quiet room. And I kind of basically told our staff member, I didn't ask, I was like, we're going to go sit in this quiet room, and I will bring food to him. I just need you to sit there and watch him. Like, that's fine. So I think for the rest of the week, we had about 3 campers that were all very sensitive to sound, and we just sat in this quiet room. Made things a lot easier. I did get 5-starred right in the back in front of our entire youth group. That was hilarious. We were getting ready for the pool. That was one thing Jack absolutely loved. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm talking too much.
No, just go ahead.
That was one thing that Jack absolutely loved was the pool. And so we were waiting to go in the pool for one of our activity times, but they had the gate closed, so we couldn't go in, and Jack was getting really antsy. It was a little loud around him, and the entire our girls' cabin is standing there. Our entire guys' cabin is standing there, and I put sunscreen on Jack, and I took off my shirt, and I was putting sunscreen on, and I mean, I'm bent down like this, putting stuff in my backpack, and Jack just goes, BAM! Right on my back. And I look up, and all the girls' faces are they're just staring at me, and I was like, okay. But really, I think after the first day, I only got hit 2 times. I know, improvements. And after the first day, I really fell in love with the camp. It was hard, for sure. It was honestly one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. But it was so much fun. I wouldn't trade having to wake up at 4:30 in the morning for a camper walking around with little animatronic toys going off every single morning for just staying here. I loved being there. I saw God in a lot of places throughout the week. But one of the major places I would say, and even Jack's parents wrote this in the paper that they gave me, and it said, if you can make him smile, you're going to feel like you conquered Mount Everest. And I kind of read that, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. But he loved animal noises, just random animal noises. And so I meowed like a cat more than I ever have in my life. But it made him smile. And his smile, he would start laughing. Or whenever we were at the pool, he just had this genuine happiness to him. And he would crawl around on his stomach the entire shallow area. I mean, just for an hour, just crawled around. He'd stand up, and then he'd walk out to the deeper end. It's like 3.5 feet. He'd turn around and just hold out his hand, and I'd take it, and he'd push off and just let me pull him through the water. And that made me so happy. I knew I wasn't going to get hit, and I knew that he was having so much fun. Because I could just tell by his face. He'd start kicking his feet real fast, and he'd just start laughing. And I knew that, man, God is working within him in ways that I would never know. It made me happy to see him smile, and I knew God was working more in that situation than I could ever think. I kind of thought of the verse from Habakkuk where it says, "For I'm doing something in your day that you would not understand even if you were told." And God was definitely working in that camp in ways that I will never know, ways that those staff members will never ever know. But that place, it's building the kingdom of God in ways, it's amazing. It's awesome. So,
thank you, Brady. Who else? Tell us about your camper and what her name was, a little bit about what she was like, and then a way that you experienced God this week.
My name is Emmy, if you don't know me. It was my first year at camp this year, and my camper's name was Avery. She was 10 years old, but her mental age was 6, and she had Down syndrome. Some ways that I saw God through Avery this week at camp was when she didn't get her way, she liked to bite and push, and she just did it repeatedly, and you just had to take a step back, give her some breaks. And it was really eye-opening for me one night, I think the 3rd or 4th night that we were there. I was like, why does she keep pushing me away when she won't get her way? And it was really eye-opening because that's what we do to God when he doesn't answer our prayers right away or the way we want him to. And we push him away, we hit him, we hurt his feelings, but he's always there for us and he loves us. So that was really eye-opening to me, and it was whoa, how does a little 10-year-old open your eyes like that at camp? But that was really powerful and moving. Yeah.
Thank you, Amy. So let me ask you a quick follow-up. In those moments where you felt like she was not being kind to you or was pushing you away, could you imagine the love that you would have for her and build for her by the end of the week?
Wait, so the last part
could you imagine how you would feel, at the end of the week, or just, I guess, contrast those, like, in those moments where you feel rejected with the feelings of, like, when she got picked up on the last day, like, you had formed a bond with her, right?
Yeah, I definitely did form a bond with her. Her pushing me away just made me want to love on her more, and it was just super sweet.
Awesome. Thank you, Emmy. Nevaeh, tell us a little bit about your camper and what her name was, a little bit about what she was like. Your name? Your camper's name? What she was like?
My name is Nevaeh, and my camper's name was Chloe. She was 14, and her mental age was like 10, I think. She had Down syndrome, and she did not like me. Like, she really did not want to be around me ever. She would rather be around anybody else rather than be around me. But I saw God in a way that, like, I never thought I would. Whenever I first came, I was like, oh, it's going to be so much fun. Like, we're going to bond and just, it's going to be great. But then we got there, she got there, and I was really excited. And then I realized that it's not going to be the way I thought it was. And so she really didn't want to be around me, but I saw God through her, because no matter how much she didn't want to be around me or how much she really did not want my presence there, I still was there for her, loving on her and showing her that I was there for her even though she didn't want me to be. And that's how we are with God. Like, we may not always want him there, we may not always want to talk to him or have him in our lives, but he's always there for us no matter what. He's always there doing things for us and forgiving us for things that we've done wrong. And I just really, yeah.
Yeah. Watching that, I think you told me on the first night, we had a big pool party on the first night after the campers got there around 4 p.m. Everybody got in their cabins. We changed into bathing suits, had dinner, and then went to the pool party. And that's when you told me that she didn't like you. And I actually saw her, like take your hand and, push you a little bit, and then go back with everybody else. But and you know that was not that it was anything about you, but it was just about, like, you were her missionary, and that she probably would have interacted that way with whoever her missionary was. It's really hard especially when you have someone that you're looking forward to getting to know, who seeks attention through negative behavior. And I know that was difficult for you, but I was touched watching your persistence and even though you didn't always have a big smile on your face because it was really stressful, you were always with her. You were always stuck with her. And that just like you said, spoke to me and reminded me how even in my moments where I'm not, treating God how I should, or respecting him or obeying him, he never gives up on me. And that was a big, that was touching for me. So thank you again for your persistence with your camper. It was awesome. Emily, tell us a little bit about your camper.
Okay, so my name's Emily, and this is my first year at camp. But I actually didn't have a camper. I was called a floater in our cabin, which means that we had more missionaries than we did campers. So I was there to help with anyone who needed it. I was always a third. That's usually whenever a camper and their missionary go off, apart from a group, you always need a third just in case something happens. So I was usually there as a third, and then if anyone needed help when a camper ran off, I was always there to help, block, and take some hits, definitely. And yes, so I did spend some time with certain campers. I spent a lot of time with a camper named Jasmine, just to be there because she didn't like loud noises. She was very sensitive to sound, and she would get headaches all the time. And so I was there in the sensory room, I would make simple conversation with her, and she just really opened my eyes because how helpful she was with everyone, and she would help. She would actually sometimes help with Miss Avery, and she was super sweet. And then I spent time with a girl named Lily a lot because she needed that extra care. She was 15 with the mental age of 2, and she was super sweet. Even though she was nonverbal, like she just was like the light of my day usually, just because she loved to give hugs. So, and a way that I saw God this week was with patience a lot, because our cabin was not always put together. It was I think there were like a couple of times where we were all together at once, and it was very interesting, but we all just need patience. And like, it's because when God, like, we push God away, and like we're not always patient with him, and just like learning to be patient with ourselves and with our like other people around us. It's just, we just need to be patient with, like, God has to be patient with us, and we need to be patient with God too, because he's not always going to answer our prayers right away, even though we want him to. We just have to be patient with those.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Yeah, a lot of times in our life, like, we have planned out what we want to do, the path that we want to take, the direction that we want to go, but that might not be God's plan for us. A lot of times, kids who have Down syndrome are prone to what they call drop and plop. Sometimes they'll just sit down and want to sit there. And when we went to camp and received the training on the first day, they said, you don't pick them up, you don't drag them to the activity, you just sit there with them and wait until they're ready to go to the pool party or whatever it is. So there were times that we had to miss out on an activity, but we were just reminded that we weren't there for us, we were there for them, and to make sure that they had as great of a week possible. And yeah, so our patience was definitely stretched this week. Well, thank you guys. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank y'all. And we've got 4 more missionaries who are going to come join us and talk for a little bit. Kim Jordan, EJ Oviedo, Isaiah Oviedo, and Maddie Burnett. While they're coming up here, I'll tell you that my role and Kim's role were cabin parents, and a lot like Emily, we served as a third or a floater for the week. We just assisted wherever was needed, and we got to observe our youth group kids helping out. We weren't supposed to do things for them. We were supposed to help them and empower them to do things. But it was a great experience, and I'm glad you got to come, Kim. Who wants to start? My intern, Maddie.
Okay, I'm Maddie. I'm the female intern. So, for starters, I had the absolute blessing of being in the man cave for my cabin. I was the only girl working in that cabin. I didn't stay in that cabin, so I missed out on the fun stuff like showering and wiping and all of that. I really missed out, and can't forget the waking up super early to stomping feet. But my camper was Dakota. He was 17, mental age was, I think, 7 to 10, somewhere in that range, and he had Down syndrome. Within 20 minutes of him being there, he said, "I want to go home. I don't want to be here." I heard that all week, all the time. And I think a lot of it was a facade he was putting on, because you would catch glimpses of him like having an absolute blast. Like, he loved the pool, he loved to hang out with me, always hanging on my arm, holding my hand, telling me, "I love you, Maddie." And if I were at my cabin and they were doing shower time or whatever, which was only an hour, I would come back and he'd say, "I missed you, Maddie. I missed you so much." And even if it was just me, because he was also gluten and dairy free, special diet, and so I would go get his food, which literally took maybe 30 seconds, and I'd come back, he said, "I miss you, Maddie."
He was a sweetheart. I also helped out a lot with Jace and his camper, Charlie. Charlie was the wanderer. I don't think I've walked more in my life. I would like to see how many miles I put in. I was miles just walking around. He had to have 2 toys in his hands at all times, and they were the type of toys that make noise, the same noise over and over.
We still hear some of those songs in our sleep.
Red, orange,
Yeah.
yellow, green, blue, and purple. These are the colors of the rainbow. That will always be in my head forever. But when they start running out of batteries, that's when it got really sad. It was creepy for us, very sad for him, full tears. But Charlie was nonverbal, completely nonverbal. I think he had autism, I believe is what he has. But such a sweetheart, doesn't know how to tell you what he wants other than grabbing your hand, like would put all of my fingers down except my pointer finger and either point at his eye if it was itchy, his nose. My hands wiped a lot of noses this week. But it was such an amazing experience. It was easily the hardest thing I've ever had to do, no question about it. But it was also the most rewarding. And I can't pick one thing of where I saw God this week, because I saw God everywhere. I saw him in the hard times, because I would think, okay, I need to breathe. God's got this. This is God's child. I'm God's child. We're all loved the same. We're going to be fine. We got this many days left. We're good. And then to be completely honest, like every single day we're like, okay, we got 5 days left, 4 days left, full on countdown. And now like I miss it. I genuinely miss it. And I didn't think I was going to say that because of how many tears I had and just full on mental breakdowns. It wasn't the prettiest sight, but the lows were really low and they were hard. But the good stuff was so good that like I miss it so much. And I miss Charlie, I miss Dakota, I miss our staff. And I think the biggest part where I saw God was in the conversations that we had at night with the rest of the missionaries and the staff. We called it family time, and we just laughed. We either cried on the really hard days, or we would laugh our heads off. We'd cry from laughing, and that's no joke. Are we going to share your steed, my lord?
Sure. We had a camper named Rodney, and he was 17, around that age, and he was also nonverbal, but he really loved to pretend. And one of our missionaries that joined us, some kids from Oklahoma, were in our cabin, and he figured this out like the last day, that Rodney really enjoyed dragons and slaying dragons, and so he brought a sword for one of the costume nights. And
you couldn't get near Rodney if he had his sword. I mean, it wouldn't hurt, but you couldn't get near him. I've never seen a foam sword be drawn faster.
Yeah.
With just random kids walking by.
Other cabins like would kind of come through our area that we were standing in. Rodney would just draw and defend us. But one of the nights, his missionary figured out that he liked to pretend to be a knight or whatever, and he had him pushing him around the gym, the concrete outdoor gym, or they call it the dome, just on a chair, and he was riding a horse, and he had a shield and everything, so it was fun. It was fun to see.
It was a good experience. God was everywhere, and I honestly would probably do it again, which is crazy to think. Like, thinking about how hard that week was, like, I absolutely would, because I didn't know how much patience I actually had to give, and I'm a control freak, so that made it extra hard, but it definitely helped mentally and spiritually and just every aspect of life. And walking around with Charlie helped physically, so
yeah,
it was good.
Thank you, Manny. So EJ was one of our younger students. The missionary position is for students who are ages 16 to 29, ages 30 and up are cabin parents, and then ages 14 and 15 are able to come, and we could not do it without them. They're called the Barnstormers, and they help prep the cafeteria for all of our meals by setting the table. There as an A meal and a B meal because there's so many people, we can't all fit in there at one time. But EJ's job for the week was to help bust our tables, wash dishes, set the tables, sweep, mop, all this stuff. So tell us a little bit about your experience, EJ.
As a barnstormer, we had to clean up after the meals, prepare the meals, wash dishes, and that wasn't always easy. There was a lot of people at the camp. So, the first day, they tried, it wasn't normal, but they put all the people together for one thing. It wasn't easy. There was lots of people. So they started doing it in A and B, which that meant a lot more cleaning. Dishes-wise, they'd have tables set up on the sides just to do extra dishes, plates, and all that. But sometimes you just feel kind of down because you'd do lunch, dinner, breakfast, and then even you'd have to clean out the cabins, toilets, baths. But there were other barnstormers there, and they'd encourage you to keep on going. And that's where I saw God. Even when you will not want to do anything, they'd look at you and encourage you, come on, you can do it, keep going. And that was just, it showed me how God, He encouraged us. He doesn't make us follow Him, He encourages us. We can follow Him in our own ways, like singing, worshiping, praying, reading the Bible daily. It's up to us, and that just really came out to me during the camp.
Thanks. Thank you, EJ. EJ was, their back deck of their cabin was next to ours, and he would come out sometimes during family time, and one of the nights, they had a pool party, and he came out to hang up his towel, and he just, we were having kind of a serious moment at family time, and he just said, "Ahoy, mateys," and we all laughed, and somebody, I think it was Brady, said, "I can't wait to see what EJ is going to be like as a missionary." But yeah, thank you so much for coming and serving, and I'm hopeful that you get to be a missionary one day at Camp Barnabas. Thanks. Isaiah, tell us a little bit about your camper and your experience with him.
So my camper's name was Jack. That is us up there. As you can see, he loves superheroes on his shirt. So he didn't really like a lot of noise. So we wouldn't get to do a lot of things where we learned a bunch of chants. It's really loud, fun. We didn't really get to go to those. But while we were just sitting there, I just asked about Batman, and he'd name 50 people who he fought. And I'd ask about Captain America. There's another 50. This kid know a lot. But I saw God through Jack. When we were sitting there, his way of fun was watching people swim instead of actually swimming himself. So that kind of ties to how other people worship and how I worship. There's two different things, and I can get close to God my way, he was having fun his way. So that's how I saw God through Jack.
Thanks. I know it was tough for you because you are an athlete. You love to play. You love to run and jump and do all the fun stuff and be in the mix. But I know it was really challenging for you to sit back and watch that, right? Yeah. But I think you grew a lot in your patience, and as the week progressed, I think you grew more and more in your confidence, knowing that you were helping your camper have a great week, right? Every time that I asked him, "Did you have a great day?" he'd just grin really big and say, "Yeah." Yeah. It was awesome. Thanks, Isaiah. Cam, tell us about your experience as a cabin mom.
Okay, as cabin mom, they described our role more as being an aunt instead of a mom, because as moms, we want to step in and do for them, and really we are not to step in and do for those missionaries. That's their responsibility. So I think that for me, that was the hardest part, was just stepping back and letting those missionaries take care of their camper. Did a lot of laundry. And that was one of our jobs as cabin moms and dads, with a lot of laundry, soiled beddings and blankets and things like that. Also was a third many times for our cabin because, as one of the girls earlier mentioned, we didn't get anywhere together ever. I don't think the whole week, but maybe twice. So we were spread out. So lots of times I was a third. But really, I saw God through our missionaries. Obviously, the children. I have a passion and a heart for children. So with all children, disabilities or no disabilities, you see God in them, in their innocence and their sweetness, and even in their moments when they're not so loving, you still see God. But I saw in our missionaries the face of Jesus so many times. It was a hard week, a very hard week. They were stretched, and we had lots of runners, we had lots of hitters, we had drops and plops. I mean, so if you think about us as people and how we sin against God and how we run from God and how we hit God and how we rebel against God, but yet He is still there with open arms waiting to receive us. That was these missionaries. Whether they had just gotten hit, whether their camper had just hit the tree for 250 times to get their anger out, and that missionary welcomed them back to hold them in their lap, to stroke their arm, to calm them. The patience, the gentleness, the love, the joy. It was a hard week, yes, but there were moments of joy. And as you heard, are we going back next year? Absolutely. Yes, I'm going back next year. And others have said the same. They displayed the face of Jesus to these campers. Self-control, gentleness. It was incredible to witness. Incredible. And the Barnstormers, I just gotta say, they were feeding 500 people at camp. So that's 250 people per meal. And I think we ate for 30 minutes, and they had 30 minutes to clean and reset up for the next meal. It was amazing that they didn't just do the cleaning, they also brought the food to us. If we needed more food, they went and got more food. If we needed more ice, they went and got more ice. Like, they were constantly serving us. The cabins, they also cleaned up the cabins. They were responsible for taking out the trash from their cabins and other things like that their cabin needed, restocking and those kinds of things. So they had a very busy behind the scenes week. So just appreciate that they were there. And there weren't many of them, I think 20. Were there 20 of y'all?
They were about 20.
Yeah, not many to be serving that many people. And so to hear what EJ had to say about how he was encouraged makes my heart smile. So
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for sharing. I appreciate your energy and your love that you poured out for the campers last week. Let's give them a hand. One of our other missionaries, Jace Lassiter, is currently on a very well-deserved vacation. So he sent us a video just to tell us a little bit about his camper. Let's watch that together.
Good morning, Johnson Street. So I'm sure, as Jason has previously said, me and some of the other members of the Johnson Street Youth Group went down to Camp Barnabas to go serve as missionaries there. We were missionaries for the kids there, and throughout the week we just helped them get through basic everyday needs and help them get through the camp. And this previous week, my camper's name was Charlie. Charlie loved just to wander and walk around, and he did not stop moving. He didn't sleep a lot either, and so my week was spent out walking around with him, and it was a lot, but it was fun. So throughout this week, I've noticed that all the staff and everyone there, even us missionaries, were always excited to see the campers. We knew nothing about them, but the moment that they were all there, everyone's full of energy, giving these kids love, just no matter what they did. It could have been something small as using the restroom by themselves, or it could have been that they did something for the first time, even though they really didn't want to. They were brave and tried it. And sometimes my camper especially would just wander away, like you had to keep eyes on him. And when he wandered away, he was lost, kind of like how we get lost from God. But God never leaves our side, or when we leave God's side, he goes out and tries to find us, and he leaves everyone else behind just to go find us and pull us back. And that's what we did with our campers there. I mean, they'd wander off or they'd be discouraged, and we had to be the ones to pull them back up and say, hey, you're doing great, or physically bring them back. I mean, and it just it was like God's love for us. We may not do the right thing always, or do what he wants us to do. We may not be in the right place, but in the end, God's love pulls us back, and just as God's love pulls us back, we pulled these kids and loved on them and showed them the power of God however we could, and in the end, we impacted these kids' lives and made many memories there, and I believe I will hold on to many of them for the rest of my life.
A big thank you to Jace and all the energy and love that he poured out this week as well. So one of the verses that immediately came to mind just watching our students work this week and pour out their love and their energy and their patience was from 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 7. Love is patient and kind. Love is not jealous or boastful or proud or rude. It does not demand its own way. It is not irritable, and it keeps no record of being wronged. It does not rejoice about the injustice, but rejoices whenever the truth wins out. Love never gives up, never loses faith, is always hopeful, and endures through every circumstance. It was very touching to see the work that our students put out this past week, as well as God's people coming from all over. There were people from Ohio, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Tennessee, a couple other churches from Texas. But it was really just wonderful to see the love and kindness and patience and all of these things that were poured out for the campers who matter to God just as much as you and I. And it was great to see the commitment and the perseverance to help make sure that they had a great week, and that they got to hear the story of Jesus, and that they got to worship with people who loved them and accepted them, because they don't always have that in their day-to-day life. It was also a blessing for many of the parents who, for some of them, they really just need a break. Or others of them, they really just want for their kid to be able to go and feel like everybody else, feel normal. But it was a wonderful experience. Another verse that came to mind was Philippians 2, verses 3 and 4. Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out for only your own interests, but take an interest in others too. And then the rest of that chapter goes on to talk about having the same attitude that Jesus had. Jesus was the most important person on the planet, and yet he did not take that to heart. He did not use that for his own advantage. He didn't leverage the power that he had. Instead, he took the role of a servant, and that's what our students did. I was very proud in just seeing the energy and love that you guys poured out. So thank you again. So if you are considering joining us for Camp Barnabas in a future year, don't be afraid. Don't be scared off by the struggles that you heard, because the reward is worth so much more, given the things that we had to go through. They say no pain, no gain, right? But just getting able to experience the little wins was really special, and we definitely made some memories that will last a lifetime. One of the cool things about Camp Barnabas is that you don't have to come with a church group. A lot of the people who come are just there by themselves or with one or two family members. So if you would like to serve at Camp Barnabas this summer, just reach out to me and I'll put you in contact with the right people. It's only about a 9.5, 10-hour drive. You might not be able to catch a charter bus like we did, but it is a great experience, and one that I would love for you to have. In our life, we really need to focus on being more selfless. I think one thing that we all experienced this week was being stretched beyond our own capabilities, beyond our own limits. And that's one of the best times for you to learn truth about who God is and who you are, who He created you to be, how He feels about you. So I want to encourage you, even if you don't go to Camp Barnabas, to find a place to serve others, because we were created to serve. Our own sinful nature causes us to be selfish, to look out for number one, to put our own interests before everyone else. That is how our sinful nature corrupts us. But I just invite you to serve somewhere, whether that's at Russ Street, whether that's here with our kids ministry. Just find a way that you can serve other people, and allow God to change you through that process. Well, I think I'm confident in saying that we were all changed this past week through our experience. If you don't know Jesus and the power of His love, then I want to invite you to join me down front here this morning, or find one of our shepherds who will be gathered around the outside of the room, and some of their wives will be with them. But if you want to know Jesus and the power of His love, the love that we talked about this morning, I just want to invite you to do that. Let me pray over you, and then we'll sing together. God, thank you so much for Christ. Thank you for the love that He gave for us throughout His life. Thank you for the role that He took as a servant. Thank you for the way that He humbled Himself and put others before Himself consistently, and ultimately taking that to the cross to pay for the wrong things that we have done, to pay for our sins. We pray that you would help us step out and have the courage to serve in new ways, to allow you to stretch us and grow us beyond what we could imagine. I pray, Father, for the rest of the summer for Camp Barnabas and all the people that you're preparing to go and serve there. I pray for the campers who are getting ready to come and enjoy a week of camp, who will be arriving later today. And I pray your blessing over the summer staff who is there for 7 more weeks, just giving their energy and love to the campers. Thank you for creating that special place that they can feel like they belong. And thank you so much for the opportunity for some of our students to go and represent you and represent Johnson Street, just serving the kingdom. Thank you so much for your love for us. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Take my life and let it be all for you and for your glory. Take my life and let it be yours. Take my life and let it be all for you and for your glory. Take my life and let it be yours.